What's up guys, I'm Dave Klein, and welcome back to my Demon Souls lore series. Today we're going to take a look at the lost and unfortunate souls who dwell in the Valley of Defilement and a saint who would shed her faith for those who suffer. Today we discuss Maiden Astraya and the Valley of Defilement. Long ago, before the events of Demon Souls took place, and even before King Allant would awaken the Old One, there was an initial scourge of demons running rampant across the land.
In the distant past, under benevolent rule, the world was united owing to the soul Ars. Until a lust for power caused the awakening of the Old One.
Fortunately for the world, the Monumentals were able to neutralize the Old One and bring it to some kind of slumber. They banned the Soul Arts and spread Archstones to various lands. Of these lands, two are notable for the time being.
One to the chieftain of lost and ill-fortuned souls. One to the shaman of the tempest-worshipping shadowmen.
The chieftain of lost and ill-fortuned souls resided in the Valley of Defilement. Meanwhile, the shaman of the tempest-worshipping shadowmen resided in the Shrine of Storms. However, it's notable that when visiting the Shrine of Storms, this culture has long since perished, confirmed by grave robber Blige, who has come to collect its artifacts.
This is where the ancient barbarians offered their honored heroes to the storm. To seek storms in life and meet storms in death. That was the warrior's code. But all that's left here now is a fine pile of dust.
I bring up this past to show just how long it's been since the Archstones were first brought to these cultures and how much has since changed. The chieftain of lost and ill-fortuned souls is represented to be someone who looks like a plague doctor. It's possible that long ago, this valley had those who were seemingly trying to fix its issues and stand up for the weak who live there. Although, notably, all of the depraved ones who reside in the valley either have elongated noses or wear face masks resembling this, so it could just be the way this race looks. Either way, much has changed, and over time, those chieftains seemingly passed away or fell to the temptation of a coming demon. Logistically, the Valley of Defilement is at the base of a large chasm where multiple streams run and eventually end, with these streams collecting and dropping off all kinds of garbage within the base of the valley. All that is unclean ends up in the giant swamp at the base of the Valley of Defilement. The swamp is a cesspool of putrilage, vermin, and plague. A society has built their homes along these mountainous gorges, with the rot and poison seeping up into them. Meanwhile, the society also has homes built into the base of the swamp where they've tried to live out their lives even as early as the first coming of the Old One. While it's unclear why or how this society started, there's always the very real possibility that it was one of the earliest societies who lived and thrived before other societies began to build their kingdoms. In fact, it could have seemed like an ideal location, with constant running water flowing and collecting. However, as Boletaria and other kingdoms rose, so too did the muck and garbage from their kingdoms, many of which could have run off into the Valley of Defilement and caused both plague and disease to spread. The rot and disease is only further perpetuated by the villagers who live there, as we see half-eaten corpses, such as those of wolves or dogs, rotting away. More rotting corpses leads to more disease and decay. One of the main running water sources we find leading into the Swamp of Sorrow is inhabited by the demon the Leechmonger, who would seem to be a demonic manifestation come to life of the parasitic creatures residing in the valley, and now spreading even more poison. Poison Cloud, spelled from the demon Leechmonger's soul, generates a cloud of poison. In defeating the Leechmonger, we find that one of the main running water sources that makes up part of what flows into the Swamp of Sorrow is absolutely filled to the brim with dead and rotting bodies. The entire floor you run across is no floor at all, but dead bodies piled up. With there being so many dead bodies, we see them even piling up and breaching the surface of the water. And, of course, this poisoned water source poisons the well, only perpetuating more rot and decay as it flows into the swamp.
This place, it's a proper heap of rubbish. All the rot of the world, living or not, ends up here.
All of this would change in a merciful, or perhaps horrific way, as a saint would interfere. In order to properly discuss Maiden Astraya and how she would affect the Valley of Defilement, I think it's best to go over a full history of Demon Souls Church. So going back in time once again, let's talk about the church and its origins. It would seem that the church began in the land of Myrd, for the first temple was built in Myrd, a land that fell long ago. The Myrdan equipment belonged to the Temple Knights, who also don a talisman for miracles, utilize heal, a succinct display of God's power, a great friend to warrior clerics, and a heater shield, which is popular amongst warriors of faith due to its ease of use. In fact, outside of their armor and weapon of choice, Temple Knights and Priests have the exact same starting equipment. Not only that, but they also have the same starting faith, both at 13. Temple Knights are described to be a special knight that protects the Temple of God, so all in all, I think we can ascertain that Myrd was where the worship of God, or at least the god whom the priests who all say Umbasa believe in, began.
Umbasa.
While it's not clear when this practice started, it was at least long enough ago that Myrd was both built and fell, and with soul arts being associated with the reason the Old One awoke, it's no coincidence this faith became so popular. Miracles utilized by the faith are antithesis to the purpose of the demon soul that it utilizes. As an example, whereas the Leechmonger's spell casts a poison cloud, the miracle granted by the Leechmonger's soul is anathema to the miasma and disease that gurgle at the defiled base of the valley. It performs the exact opposite of what the demon soul initially did, and instead casts Cure to cure the caster of all status ailments. So, with the soul arts being banned and viewed as the cause of great chaos, this religion spread across the land and became quite popular, even being associated with nobility.
A miracle is a heavenly act, but spells are the acts of demons, the work of soul arts. They have similar effects, and yet one is clearly evil, and the other is clearly good. Magicians, in the end, are mere servants of the demons.
However, while miracles are the antithesis of what a demon soul does, and on the outside may seem to be obviously better than sorcery, which uses soul arts to cast spells as they were intended, unknowingly to the members of the church, it all stems from the exact same place as evidenced by a number of things. As Sage Frey tells us,
As you know, magic is one of the soul arts. The Scourge of Boletaria has activated all souls and energized all magic.
Meanwhile, Saint Urbane admits that the spread of soul arts and awakening of the Old One also causes a boost in the power of miracles.
After the dark arts spread across the land, holy miracles were witnessed once again.
So they both received a comparable boost thanks to the Scourge. However, there's more.
Prayer is for the foolish, quaint, and soon to be dead. And heaven forbid the day you find out what their so-called God really is.
So what could the church be worshipping as their god? If we look at the Talisman of Beasts, it's an old wooden amulet featuring a symbolic depiction of the Old One. What was considered a depiction of God was in fact an image of the Old One, portrayed as a force of feral chaos. Even the now more commonly used Talisman of God is a handcrafted metal amulet featuring a symbolic depiction of God used to cast miracles, which looks to contain many branches, similar to that of the Old One. The Talisman of Beasts can even be used to cast both miracles and magic. What all of this means is that miracles stem from the exact same place as sorcery and spells. They all come from soul arts, demons, and the Old One. However, the church seems to deem certain things as being holy and others as being heretical based upon a number of issues, and part of that being nobility and money. If we take a look at Yuria the Witch, she tells us that
I was branded a witch at a very young age, and have been persecuted ever since. Although I never had ill intentions, this black craft of mine is intrinsically evil. If there is a God, he gave us souls to do good, not to practice witchcraft. My accusers detested my dark arts for good reason, for the path I have taken is tainted.
On the contrary, let's take a look at Saint Astraya. By using her soul, we can get the Blue Blood Sword, which is described as a white iron straight sword forged from the soul of the demon Maiden Astraya. Bolstered by the mercurial human quality awarded to each and all at birth, this weapon is known as a sword of nobility. To me, as it comes from her soul, this indicates Maiden Astraya was born into nobility with perhaps the clan name of Blue Blood. At a young age, she happened upon the Ring of Sincere Prayer, one of the few remaining true relics of God, discovered by Astraya, the sixth saint, at a tender young age. Rather than being deemed a witch, she was deemed a saint and raised as such. This isn't the first time we've seen magical items used by church nobility as holy items, rather than blasphemous either. The Vinland family, where Jarl Vinland and Selin Vinland hail, would seem to be of considerable wealth and fortune. The dull gold set that Selin Vinland dons is said to be worn into battle by women of high rank. Jarl Vinland's dark silver armor is armor passed down through generations of the Vinland family. Dark silver is the oldest known metal and is said to ward off malice. Their weapons, Blind and Brammed, are Vinland family treasures. Blind is a curved sword with a perfectly transparent blade. The blade is illusory and as light as a feather, allowing it to pass through any shield's defense, clearly utilizing magic. Similarly, Istarel, used by the Holy Knight Risaya, is one of the few remaining relics of God, and is a divine spear that increases its wielder's resistance to plague and poison. However, the most damning of all is the large sword of Moonlight. Moonlight is an element directly associated with sorcery and spells. Moonlight Stone imbues weapons with a powerful magic effect, and Latria, a location completely associated with magic, as I discussed in my Latria and the Old Monk lore video, is completely bathed in moonlight. However, the large sword of Moonlight, which is a legendary large sword that shines with moonlight, and whose blue crystal blade is composed entirely of light, making it impossible to block with a shield, is strongly associated with Moonlight Veto, one of the few remaining relics of God, and scales with faith, not intelligence. So if you're a warrior, priest, and soldier of the church that believes in the god of this world, it seems you get a pass and your magical weapons are deemed holy. If you're born into a wealthy and noble class, your weapons and relics are deemed family treasures and are also holy, not heretical. And the Maiden Astraya, born of a noble family, stumbled across a ring, and was thereby deemed the sixth saint rather than deemed a witch. So take all of this background of both the Valley of Defilement and Demon Souls Church, and now enter King Allant and the awakening of the Old One, causing a second scourge. Certain renowned members of the church entered the fog, likely on a missionary mission to bring about God and cleanse what was unholy. Maiden Astraya was one such saint to enter the fog, and she brought with her a bodyguard, Jarl Vinland, a strong warrior from another noble family, the Vinland family, who was so powerful he wielded Brammed, a dreadfully enormous coarse iron hammer. Its distortion is the mark of an old giant killer. Even so, it is difficult to use even with both hands if the wielder has normal human strength. What Maiden Astraya and Jarl Vinland found was something quite opposite to their noble lifestyles. Gone were the rich and noble upbringings they held, and instead they witnessed the plague, rot, disease, and desperation of the Valley of Defilement.
How many years has it been since that witch Astraya came to this valley with that squid-headed knight? Those ridiculous white robes of hers.
Disturbed by the sight they found, Maiden Astraya and Jarl Vinland abandoned their faith. How could the god they worshipped let such plight and misfortune they had never known existed in their sheltered noble lives occur?
Dear Lord, you are too cruel. You have abandoned us. Is that not punishment enough?
Astraya was once the sixth saint, but now she lives beside those awaiting death in the Valley of Defilement. To ease the pain of the valley's dwellers, Astraya chose surrender to a demon soul over the cruel god she worshipped.
Ever since that demoness came here, everything has turned foul. This was a much better place before she came. I was the apple of every man's eye. You're here to rid us of her, aren't you? Well, don't show her any mercy.
As jealous as the filthy woman may have been of the Maiden Astraya, she does bring up a point. Beyond the swamp, filled with poisonous jellyfish and giant slugs, is a cavern that absorbs all that is unclean, and a shrine of rotten trees erected in honor of a demon. Visitors offer souls to be freed from their notions of suffering. This human valley is a haven for the used and forgotten. Its inhabitants, afflicted by poison and plague, await their deaths in this forsaken place, attacking those who wander in, hoping to offer their souls to the one woman who showed them compassion. The villagers and depraved ones set up an encampment around a shrine they erect for the Maiden Astraya. Special depraved ones wear shaman sets, and their encampment is filled with other depraved ones strung up, lit on fire, perhaps to keep away the poisonous flies, or perhaps for religious purposes. At the shrine, they worship Astraya like a god, as she's a demon and would take souls for herself, and for the Old One, they would attack all who'd entered the Valley of Defilement, desperate to offer their new savior those souls. And what would they get in return that would free them from their suffering? To delve into that, let's take a look at what evidence we find within her demon soul and what we see around her. Deeper and deeper within the Valley of Defilement, the poison only grows worse. The outer area offers visitors poison, with a poisonous Leechmonger demon forming, and deeper inside, a demonic soul has attached to a rotten tree, formed together with a collection of garbage. Flies swarm this demon, who had the working title of the Fly-Ridden Demon. Its dirty Colossus soul generates a cloud of acid which corrodes equipped armor and weapons. At the very heart, where the Maiden Astraya resides, is a bed of plague, with mucky abominations resembling babies residing within. It's clear she hasn't done any actual work to clean the valley of its physical filth, so she attempts to free them of their mental anguish. Her pure blood demon soul creates a death cloud, which creates a deadly cloud of plague. Astraya, who willingly accepted the corrupted and corroded, naturally became the most corrupted of them all. It can also be transformed into relief. Fully recover a companion by touching them. Astraya is the most corrupted of all demon kind, but her essence parallels the most divine of beings. So, as sorceries in the game strongly represent what the demonic entity entails, we find that she herself has come to spread both plague and relief, perhaps showing the duality of her choice and what she has done, yet brings about through demonhood.
I find something odd about this place. It brims with grime, but at once feels strangely pure.
The miracle of resurrection is the antithesis to Maiden Astraya, and it's a miracle derived from the soul of Maiden Astraya become demon, returns nearby phantoms to their respective worlds, restoring their bodies in the process. If restoring the bodies of those who have lost them is the so-called denunciation of Maiden Astraya, then that would mean removing the bodies and souls from those who worship her would be her purpose. We see what happens to those who become soul-starved. They lose themselves, no longer aware of who they are. Before I present this theory, I want to make it clear that I found it while researching translations from Loki souls, which I'll link to in the description, but I found it to be convincing, so I present it here. Perhaps Maiden Astraya is offering relief to all of her followers by making them soul-starved so they no longer feel or understand their suffering, an offer of mercy to those in horrible pain. And while we see no evidence of any attempt to fix the true problems causing the plague and poison throughout the land, is Maiden Astraya truly the savior these people needed, or does the filthy woman have a good reason to be upset with her, witnessing the madness and further decay she's perhaps caused in what she perceives to be a virtuous attempt to help those suffering? The villagers now madly kill all who enter, offering souls to essentially be lobotomized by Maiden Astraya.
Have you ever visited the Valley of Defilement? The bog there is filled with the corpses of honourable knights too foolish to stay out of harm's way. Well, you may have heard of some of them. Vito the Moonlight Knight, Rizaya of Istarel, and many, many, many more. I reckon they left behind some fine armour and weapons. Why not have a look and see what you can find?
After hearing rumors about Maiden Astraya, one of the very few members of the church granted sainthood who would dare besmirch the reputation of the church, warrior priests and other famous members were sent to look into it, and perhaps physically deal with the situation if it came to it.
Have you heard the rumors about Astraya of the Valley of Defilement? They claim that she and her loyal knight have become demons and lead a clan of degenerate miscreants. In truth, the rumors are surely unfounded. There are all sorts of wrongdoers down there who would think up such nonsense. Yet, if the rumors are true, then may she be eternally damned for her debasement of the Lord's name.
Scattered throughout the valley, across the depraved chasm, deeper within the swamp, and even in the sanctuary, countless bodies of warrior priests and even temple knights can be found, with Maiden Astraya herself sitting amongst a mountain of these corpses. The church sent a few of their most famous and illustrious warriors to find and return Maiden Astraya, only for these warriors to also fall victim.
Vito the Moonlight Knight, Rizaya of Istarel, even Selen Vinland. Many honorable knights have ventured into Boletaria in search of the Valley of Defilement. The vicious rumors about Astraya offend our most basic sense of respect for God's name. However, none of these great knights have made it back. Could it be that that wretched valley is so infested with grime that even our Lord's voice does not resonate there? Or perhaps it is the fate of those left behind by God.
Lizaya's Istarel can be found higher up, guarded by a group of large depraved ones, implying that Lizaya was indeed lost to the region. Even Vito, with his large sword of moonlight, surely perished, for his sword can be found within a nest of slugs, perhaps feeding off of its energy. There have been so many members slain here, it seems Garl Vinland assumes that you're a member of the church when attacking him in Maiden Astraya.
Why must you pests insist on intruding upon our haven? You abandoned us long ago. What right do you have? We live humble lives. Leave us be.
Only Selen Vinland yet lives, seeking out her brother Garl.
I am Selen of the West. I seek my brother Garl Vinland, the knight who accompanied Saint Astraya on her travels. I believe they settled here. If you happen to see my younger brother, please tell me. I must share with him the last words of our father.
Upon killing Garl's Black Phantom and receiving his Crest of Vinland, she realizes the truth of his fate and his choice to join Maiden Astraya as she became a demon.
That crest? A Vinland heirloom meant for my younger brother. So, my brother and Astraya have both strayed from the path of God. The poor souls. Perhaps their hearts were too pure. Umbasa.
While we never learn the dying words of their father, we are given a hint into what it could have been.
Please accept this as thanks. Perhaps you will have use for it, as he now does not. May you receive God's blessing.
Selen Vinland gives you a ring of devout prayer, a symbol of high status in the church. It is bestowed only upon those who are engaged in deep and constant prayer, devoted to selfless and eternal service to their Maker. The only other person in the game in possession of this is Saint Urbane, indicating that it was the dying wish of Garl Vinland's father that Garl Vinland enter into an even higher status within the church. A wish that was never meant to be.
I failed you.
That wraps up Maiden Astraya and the Valley of Defilement. I hope you enjoyed this video, as while the Swamp of Sorrow can be quite the trudge to get through, I truly enjoy looking into and discussing the lore of it. As I mentioned during the video, I do highly recommend checking out Loki Souls, and I'll link to their website in the description. A huge thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon for their continued support. Davis McGrath, Chris Fry, and Jason Buck, and every single one of you. Seriously, it means so much to me. If you enjoyed this video, check out my lore video on Latria and the Old Monk, or one of my many other From Software lore videos. Or one of my comedic retrospectives I put a huge amount of work in. Maybe? Please? Alright, see you guys later. Peace.